Hello everyone, now we begin in the dry heat of a Nevada morning, where the sun bakes the sand until it shimmers like molten glass and even the wind feels like it's fresh out of a hairdryer. You're out here early, maybe too early, the kind of time when even the jackrabbits think twice about hopping around. You smell oil and gunpowder, hear the mechanical click of bolts locking into place, and see steel targets lined up in the distance like ghosts from a forgotten war, and that's when you notice him, at the far end of the range, down past the regulars with their pristine Glocks and their tight groups, is someone different. An old man, gray-bearded and hunched, not moving with the kind of stiffness you'd expect but rather a coiled stillness. He's got this ancient bolt-action rifle, wooden stock faded, iron sights. No optics, no flash. Just steel, sweat, and silence. He doesn't draw attention, but somehow you can't look away. Because something's off. Not wrong. Just unspoken, then you see it. The tattoo. Faded. Simple. A line of digits beneath an anchor and dagger. You're no historian, but even you know what that symbol means, and you're not the only one watching. Just a few benches down, a Navy SEAL recruit, lean, fresh-faced, just off his last rotation of training, starts moving toward the old man. He's not subtle about it either. Taps his water bottle, checks his gloves like he's stretching the moment out, then he makes the move. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and tell me in the comments, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it right now where you are. Now, relax, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get into today's story. Excuse me, sir, the recruit says, trying for casual, but you can hear the reverence already creeping in. That tattoo, SEAL Team 1. The old man pauses. Not startled. Just quiet. Yes, he says, after a breath. His voice is gravel wrapped in velvet. A long time ago. The recruit smiles, probably expecting some camaraderie or maybe a war story about fast boats and midnight ops. What he gets is silence. The old man reloads his rifle, lifts it, fires. The steel target rings, a deep metallic echo that somehow feels heavier than it should. The recruit nods slowly. My CO has that same ink. I'm trying to earn mine. A moment passes. The old man finally turns his head, just slightly. You won't earn it out here, he says. The recruit chuckles nervously, unsure if that was wisdom or warning. Mind if I ask where you served? There it is. The question. The air tightens like a drawn bow. I served in places we weren't supposed to be, the old man says, and just like that, the world quiets. You feel it too. Something about the way he said it. Not proud. Not bitter. Just honest. The recruit takes the hint and begins to back away, until he catches another glimpse of that tattoo. Not the main emblem, but a second mark beside it, almost burned into the skin. It looks off. Like a brand. 3 tiny vertical lines inside a circle. Wait, the recruit says. That's not part of the SEAL ink. Is that? Don't ask, the old man cuts in, eyes still forward. But then, after a long pause, he adds, unless you're ready to hear what it cost. That's when you realize, this isn't going to be some polished military memoir. No medals, no glory. This is something else. This is the kind of story people bury so deep, it only comes out when there's no one left to impress and nothing left to lose. The recruit sits down slowly on the bench beside him, wordless now. He knows. You know, something happened. The old man finally lowers his rifle. Not in defeat. More like a ritual. He wipes it down with a cloth that's older than you, sets it gently back into its case, and leans back like he's staring into a jungle only he can see. The tattoo isn't what you think, he says quietly. It's not about pride. It's a promise. One I kept when no one else would. And it started in a place called Plei Trap Valley. You feel the world shift beneath your boots, because what's coming next won't be in any training manual. It won't be in the documentaries or the books or even the quiet nods shared between old veterans at bar counters. This is the kind of story that carries weight in its pauses, truth in its regrets, and lessons hidden beneath the scars. The recruit leans in, quiet now, and the old man begins, Plei Trap Valley. You'd never heard of it before. Neither had the recruit. But the old man says it like someone naming the street where they grew up. Like a place still tattooed on the inside of his eyelids, it was 71, he starts. January. We weren't supposed to be there. Black Recon. Deep Incursion. Cambodia border. Off books. No air cover. No extraction if it went sideways. Just our team and the jungle. You don't interrupt. The recruit doesn't even blink. We were 6, he continues. 3 from SEAL Team 1, 2 Montagnard scouts, and Captain Elias Frost. Frost was different. Harvard man. Soft-spoken. The kind of guy who wrote poetry in the barracks and could put a bullet through a coin at 300 yards. The old man closes his eyes for a moment. He believed in rules. Even out there. Even when we stopped believing in much of anything. You picture it, 6 shadows moving through the triple canopy jungle, boots sinking into moss, machetes whispering through vines, leeches, heat, rot. The jungle doesn't care who you are. It just waits. We've been moving for 6 days, he says. Intel said there was a hidden PAVN listening post built into the cliffs above the valley. Frost wanted proof. We were sent to verify and mark it for future strikes. But on day 7, things went wrong. He swipes his thumb slowly across the barrel of the rifle. It squeaks. Just once, we got ambushed. Not by patrols, by farmers. Young boys. Old men. None of them in uniform, but they had rifles and mortars and hate in their eyes. The recruit shifts uncomfortably. But he doesn't look away. They knew we were coming. Someone tipped them off. We never found out who. He takes a breath. We lost Tran first. Scout. Claymore caught him in half. 2 minutes later, Fowler caught a round in the thigh and couldn't move. Captain Frost stayed behind to drag him to cover while we laid down fire. The words are steady, but there's something building in his voice. Not emotion, tension. Like he's forcing the memories through a filter of years and dust. I circled left, tried to flank. Made it to a ridge. That's when I saw it, 4 civilians running supplies from a hut to a machine gun nest carved into the cliff. One of them was a kid, maybe 10. He carried belts of ammo over his shoulders like they were candy ropes. You feel the recruit stiffen. War stories always seem so clean in boot camp. This isn't that. I had the shot. The whole line. Frost was pinned. The team was pinned. I hesitated. Because of the kid. You imagine the trigger under his finger, the weight of the rifle pressing against his shoulder. And you realize, it wasn't the recoil that hurt the most. I fired. Nest collapsed. I don't know who survived it. Maybe none of them. Maybe that kid. Maybe he's still out there. The old man exhales slowly, and it sounds like a confession decades late. We regrouped. Or tried to. Fowler was bleeding out. Frost dragged him half a mile through mud and gunfire until the evac bird found a gap in the trees. Then he gets quiet. Real quiet, but something happened after the bird left. You feel your skin go cold. Because the way he says it, that slight tilt of voice, it's the moment the story changes. There was one more man alive. Viet Cong sniper. Caught in the blast but not dead. Frost found him. Dragged him too. The recruit raises an eyebrow. Wait. He brought him with you. He did, the old man nods. And he ordered us to carry him. What? The recruit blurts. A live enemy fighter. After what he did. Frost said he was a soldier, not an executioner. That we were better than revenge. The silence that follows is thick. You both know that in the bush, mercy can be fatal. He was wrong, the old man says. They had less than 2 hours to make it to the second LZ. The rain started. The sniper groaned in pain. They gave him water. Frost splinted his leg with bamboo and cloth. But somewhere in that jungle, while crossing a narrow gully, the sniper moved too fast. Grabbed a knife. Frost tried to stop him. The two went down the slope together. We heard the scream, he says. We found Frost 3 minutes later. His throat cut. But the sniper didn't make it far either. You can see it. A jungle altar. Blood and ferns. One man who believed in honor, and another who didn't care. The old man leans forward now, elbows on knees, I shot the sniper. But Frost was already gone. And then, the tattoo, after we made it back, he says, we gave Frost a ceremony. Quiet. No medals. No names. The op didn't exist. But I got this ink. Not the seal mark, the other one. The 3 bars in the circle. It was his symbol. The recruit is whispering now. Why that symbol? He called it Soteria. Said it was Greek for deliverance. He said if we made it home, we had a duty to live like we remembered. You don't speak. Neither does the recruit, because in this moment, the quiet man with the faded rifle isn't just telling a story, he's handing over a burden. The morning sun has shifted now, cutting longer shadows across the range. The sand, still hot, has quieted as the regulars finish their sessions, packing up their gear and fading into background noise. But not you. Not the recruit. You're still there, motionless, drawn into the gravity of this man's story, one that somehow feels heavier than the desert heat itself. The old man doesn't look at either of you as he speaks again. His eyes are distant, fixed somewhere beyond the firing line. We thought it was over, he says. The mission, the loss, all of it. But about 2 months later, we started hearing rumors. Whispers about a rogue op. A captain who'd lost his mind. Who'd sheltered the enemy. They painted Frost like a sympathizer. Said he gave aid to VC prisoners. That he let emotion override orders. The recruit opens his mouth to protest, but the old man raises a hand. Don't, he says. I know. You know. But the brass needed a clean report. No gray areas. And in Frost's death, they found something useful. You feel the tension rise, not just in the old man, but in yourself. Because this wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. They scrubbed the logs. Frost was never listed on that op. His remains were buried under another name. Family got a flag, no answers. But why? The recruit asks. Why not honor him properly? The old man turns now, just slightly, and for the first time you notice a scar on his temple, nearly hidden by his hair. Because acknowledging what he did meant acknowledging we weren't always right. That sometimes the mission didn't end with a clean shot and a helicopter ride home. He rubs his hands together slowly, like trying to get warmth back into fingers long gone cold. They told us to forget. Ordered it. But I couldn't. None of us could. The rest of the team drifted. Some went private. Some disappeared into drink. Me, I made a vow. You wait. The wind picks up, lifting grit into the air. The man's voice cuts through it like gravel dragged over steel. I started looking. For what? The recruit asks, for proof. The story shifts again. Suddenly, you're no longer in the jungle. You're in the years after. Civilian clothes. A duffel bag. 1,000-mile stare. The man speaks of train rides to cities where no one knew his name. Of backroom meetings with war correspondents. Of late-night calls to translators, informants, widows of fallen allies. He tracked every soldier who served under Frost, tried to piece together a truth that had been erased, and one night, in a burned-out village outside of Daktu, he found what he needed. There was an old woman, he says. She ran a clinic. Said she remembered the fighting, the machine gun nest, the boy with the ammo belts. You both lean in, holding your breath. She told me something else, he continues. The sniper, the one who killed Frost, was her nephew. And before he died, he said something strange. What? The recruit asks, that the American captain had spared his life once before. You blink. It doesn't make sense. He'd been captured 2 weeks earlier during a recon sweep. Frost convinced command to treat him instead of executing him on the spot. Said killing a wounded man would break something in all of us. You realize what the recruit is just now piecing together. Frost had already spared this man once. And it cost him everything. The old man leans back slowly, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Justice wasn't in the bullets, he says. It was in the mercy. But no one wanted to hear that. The recruit speaks carefully now, like each word is sacred. So what did you do with that story? I wrote it, the old man says. Typed it on an old Remington. 40 pages. Sent it to the Pentagon. To the Naval Archives. To Frost's family. And no response. Ever. He shrugs, but it's not defeat, it's clarity. Sometimes the truth doesn't get a parade. Sometimes it just waits for someone to ask the right question. Then he looks directly at the recruit. You asked. That matters. You both sit in silence for a moment, trying to make space for what he's carrying. You feel the presence of Frost, this quiet, poetry-writing captain who believed in honor more than orders, hovering like smoke around the edges of the story, and that's when the old man reaches down and pulls a small box from his rifle case. I want you to have this, he says to the recruit. The young man's hands hesitate, then take the box gently. Inside is a single patch. Faded cloth, stitched with the Soteria symbol, the 3 bars inside a circle. Only 5 of us ever wore that, the old man says. 1 for each man Frost saved on that mission. The recruit swallows. But why me? Because you're still listening, the old man says. And because it's not just a story anymore. It's a torch. The wind gusts again, kicking up sand across the range. The steel targets sway slightly on their chains. You realize, in that moment, that what you're witnessing isn't just history, it's inheritance. The wind dies down. But the silence between you hangs heavier than ever. The recruit cradles the patch like it's made of glass, the kind of fragile weight you don't measure in ounces but in memory. You realize you haven't fired a single round in over an hour, and neither has the old man. This isn't a shooting range anymore. This is sacred ground. The old man lets the silence sit for a while longer before breaking it. After that day in the valley, I didn't wear the uniform much longer, he says. I stayed in just long enough to bury some ghosts and close a few files. You don't ask what that means. From the way he says it, you know some of those files didn't involve paperwork. I left quietly. No retirement ceremony. No commendations. I didn't want them, he says. I just packed up and walked off base with a duffel bag and a rusted Zippo. He chuckles softly, not in humor but disbelief. My final debriefing officer said I was emotionally unfit for extended operations in high-threat environments. I told him the high-threat environment was behind a desk in DC. That earns a grin from the recruit, who's still staring at the patch in his palm. So what did you do after? You finally ask. The old man exhales through his nose. I tried to be useful. What follows isn't a montage of medals or accolades. It's the quiet story of a man who worked odd jobs in small towns. Mechanic. Wilderness guide. Volunteer EMT in Montana. Gun safety instructor at a boys' home in Arizona. 1,000 lives hidden behind one face. I never stayed too long anywhere, he says. Didn't want to answer too many questions. Didn't want to lie. But you were doing good, the recruit says, half in protest. The old man nods. I wasn't trying to be a hero. Just wanted to be someone Frost would have nodded at. You imagine him walking those back roads, stepping quietly into communities that never asked about his past. You picture him at a diner counter, sipping burnt coffee. Watching the world pass without ever needing to step into it. Then one day, about 15 years ago, he found something unexpected, a newspaper clipping. A local story from San Diego about a college student whose father had died in Vietnam. His name, Elias Frost. She'd spent years chasing the truth, he says. Family never got a full report. She'd become a researcher, trying to prove her father wasn't what the military claimed. His fingers tremble slightly on the bench. I met her once. Only once. At a park in Sacramento. Gave her everything I had, photos, coordinates, unit maps, even a blood-stained page of Frost's field notebook. He reaches into his case again and pulls out a wrinkled photograph. It's black and white, edges curled. 6 men crouch in tall grass, rifles in hand, eyes wary. You recognize the old man, much younger. You recognize Frost, clean-cut, eyes sharp but soft. She didn't cry, he says. She just said thank you. Then asked if I wanted to testify. Go public. Write a memoir. You wait for the answer, even though you already know it. I said no. The world doesn't need another war story. It needs to remember why some stories are buried. The recruit looks up, something burning in his eyes. But you let her tell it, right? I let her decide. She wrote a thesis. Published it. Got laughed at by some, praised by others. Never caught much attention. He pauses, but she knows the truth. That's enough. The breeze shifts. You hear the distant thump of a new shooter setting up at the far end of the range, but it feels like another planet away. I've come back here every week for 20 years, he says. Same bench. Same rifle. Not for the practice. For the memory. This was the first place I ever fired a weapon as a civilian. I wanted to prove to myself it still meant something. You glance at the target downrange, punched clean through the center. Again and again. Precision without optics. Muscle memory hone and fire. I'm not the only one, he says. Every town has someone like me. A man with too many memories and too few words. Then he stands. For a second, you feel something shift in the air, like the scene is ending, but the meaning is only beginning. The old man zips up his rifle case, slips the photo into his jacket, and brushes the sand from his seat. You'll make it, he says to the recruit. Just don't forget who you are when they give you the uniform. The cloth doesn't make the man. The recruit nods slowly. And what makes the man? The old man pauses, what he does when no one ever knows. With that, he turns and begins the long walk back to his truck. No salute. No final look, you watch him go, boots crunching over dust and gravel. And for a second, you swear the air around him bends, like the heat itself respects the weight of the man moving through it. Then he's gone, and you're left with nothing but the wind, a patch in a young man's hands, and a silence that somehow says more than any explosion ever could. The old man's truck is just a shimmer now. Swallowed by the distant haze, but his presence lingers like a ghost in the sand. The bench still holds the imprint of his weight. The recruit sits quietly, running his fingers over the edges of the Soteria patch like it's some kind of sacred relic, because now, it is. Neither of you speaks for a while. The targets downrange don't matter anymore. Not today. You finally break the silence. You okay? He exhales, slow and deep. I don't know. I thought I wanted stories like that. I thought I was ready to hear them. You were, you say. He wouldn't have told you otherwise. The recruit studies the patch. It's not just fabric. It's responsibility. Exactly. You don't have to say it out loud. You feel it too. Then he stands, suddenly. Walks to the firing line. Loads a single round. No fancy breathing techniques, no competitive stance, just a soldier standing alone in the sand. The crack of the shot echoes hard off the hills. Dead center. Clean as Frost would have liked, he steps back, sets the rifle down, and just stands there a moment longer. Do you think anyone would believe me if I told them? He asks. Some will, you say. Some won't. But that's not why you tell it. He nods. You tell it because someone told it to you. And that's the truth, isn't it? There's a war that never makes the news. A war for memory. For integrity. For quiet acts of grace buried beneath history's noise. Over the next few weeks, the recruit returns to the range more often. You see it in his eyes, something has shifted. Less swagger, more focus. He still trains like hell. But now he listens more. Reads more. Keeps that patch in a pouch inside his bag like a compass he's not quite ready to wear. One day, he tells the story to someone else. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just a quiet retelling under the stars on bivouac, his voice steady, the words simple. A story about a man who carried mercy into a jungle and paid for it with his life. It spread slowly from there. One platoon. Then two. A unit in Mississippi starts painting the Soteria symbol in chalk at training grounds. No one even knows where it came from. But they hear whispers about a captain who walked differently, and every now and then, someone writes into the old man's P.O. box. They don't get a reply. But they don't need one. The lesson isn't in the reply. It's in the asking. Years pass. The story doesn't fade. It settles, deep in the bones of those who carry it forward. It survives through discipline, kindness, and quiet justice, not because it's easy, but because it matters more than anyone will ever clap for. One day, long after the recruit becomes an instructor himself, he visits that same range. The bench is older now. The sand just as cruel. And carved faintly beneath the seat, almost hidden from sight, are three words, live like frost. He smiles, presses his fingers to the carving, and sits down to wait for someone to ask the right question. because now, it's his turn. Take a deep breath with me now. Not just in your chest, but in your gut, down where stories like this settle. Where they echo. Where they ask something of us. There's a temptation, after hearing something so heavy, to move on too quickly. To scroll to the next thing. To let it be just another video in the feed. But don't. Not yet. Let this one linger. Let the image of the quiet old man stay with you a little longer, the one with the fading tattoo and a heart stitched together by memories the world tried to erase. Let the name Frost settle in your mind, not as a martyr, not as a ghost, but as a mirror, because maybe there's someone in your life right now who's done something quiet and kind that no one ever noticed. Maybe there's someone you need to remember. Or maybe it's you, and if there's one thing this story teaches us, it's that true strength often hides behind silence. That some of the most powerful acts of justice, of leadership, of brotherhood, don't need an audience, so sit with that a little longer, and when the moment comes, when someone turns to you with a question they don't yet know how to ask, remember the patch. Remember the burden. And answer with the kind of truth that can live longer than metals. This story is now yours. Pass it on wisely.